15, text 13. Chapter 15, text 13, page 710. Word by word. Gam avishya cha bhutani dharayami aham ojasa pushnami cha aushadhi sarvaha somaha bhutva rasatmakaha gama vishya cha bhutani dharayamyaham ojasa pushnami chaushadhi sarva somo bhutva rasatmakaha gama vishya cha bhutani dharayamyaham ojasa pushnami chaushadhi sarva somo bhutva rasatmakaha gama vishya cha bhutani dharayamyaham ojasa pushnami chaushadhi sarva somo bhutva rasatmakaha
Gama vishya cha bhutani dharayamya aham ojasa pushnami chausada sarva soma bhutva rasatmaka
Gama vishya cha bhutani
Gama vishya cha bhutani
dharayamyaham ojasa
dharayamyaham ojasa
pushnami chausadhi sarva
pushnami chaushadhi sarva
somo bhutva rasatmakaha
somo bhutva rasatmakaha
Gama vishya cha bhutani
Gama vishya cha bhutani
dharamyaham ojasa
dharayamyaham ojasa
pushnami chaushadhi sarvaha
pushnami chaushadhi sarva
somo bhutva rasatmakaha
somo bhutva rasatmakaha
Gama vishya cha bhutani dharayamyaham ojasa pushnami chaushadhi sarva
pushnami chaushadhi sarva
somo bhutva rasatmakaha
somo bhutva rasatmakaha
Avinadurabhatam promoted Ginadyata Basani Danyamaham Adad Puspani Vikampusa Sarva Samabhatva Rastmaham
somo bhutva rasatmakaha Word to word trans meanings. Gam, the planets. Avishya, entering. Cha, also. Bhutani, living entities. Dharayami, sustaining. Aham, I. Ojasa, by my energy. Pushnami, nourishing. Vraksha and Aushadhi, all vegetables. Sarva, all. Somaha, the moon. Bhutva, becoming. Rasatmakaha, supplying the juice. Translation: I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables.
Purport.
It is understood that all the planets are floating in the air only by the energy of the Lord. The Lord enters into every atom, every planet, and every living being. That is discussed in the Brahma Samhita. It is said there that one plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, enters into the planets, the universe, the living entity, and even into the atom. So due to his entrance, everything is appropriately manifested. When the spirit soul is there, a living man can float on the water. But when the living spark is out of the body and the body is dead, it sinks. Of course, when it is decomposed, it floats just like straw and other things. But as soon as the man is dead, he at once sinks in the water. Similarly, all these planets are floating in space, and this is due to the entrance of the supreme energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His energy is sustaining each planet, just like a handful of dust. If someone holds a handful of dust, there is no possibility of the dust falling. But if one throws it in the air, it will fall down. Similarly, these planets which are floating in air are actually held in the fist of the universal form of the Supreme Lord. By his strength and energy, all moving and unmoving things stay in their place. It is said that because of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sun is shining and the planets are steadily moving.
In the cosmological section of the Bhagavatam, describes that the form of the Lord Shishumar, all the planets are moving, everything is organized. Kala Chakra, Chakshuresha Savita Sakala Grahana, Raja Samasta Shura, Shesha Teja, Yasya Gyaya Brahmata Sambrita Kala Chakro, Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. It is by the specific order that the sun travels every day on its orbit. According to Vedic cosmology, the sun moves around the earth. Every day the sun travels on its chariot, on its journey around. And the orbit is so exact that we can calculate everything from the sun's journey. How we calculate day and night depend on the sunrise and sunset. It's all dependent upon the journey of the sun. And the sun is given his specific orbit. And it's under the control of the Lord. It says specifically, Lord Brahma, who's the engineer of the universe under the direction of Krishna, he's giving this information that the sun has a specific orbit, just like pilots, when they're flying their airplanes, they can't go on whatever orbit they like. If they deviate and they lose their license, they're immediately disbarred from being a pilot, because it will create havoc. So if that's the case in our small, limited Earth air traffic, what to speak about the whole universe where there's thousands and millions of planets. So gravity, weightlessness, orbitation, all these different things, we give them names, that's okay, but we don't know how they work. We may say, well, this is what we've observed. We observe that this seems to be rotating, the constellations are going around. How is it the constellations are fixed in their position? It's quite amazing. Astronomers will say, yes, it's amazing that all the planets and the constellations that go around together in a group. But what are the chances by accident or chaos that such a large group of planets covering millions of miles would be going around in a group for millions of years? Whatever we may discover, whatever energies we may discover, whether it's solar energy or electrical energy, gravitational, magnetic, that's all right. We may be perceiving the tip of the iceberg, but we have to go deeper to find out what's really causing these energies, what's the source of these energies, and how are they being directed and how are they being managed. And then we have to get into the real, shall we say, the essence of everything. And that's what Bhagavad-Gītā is all about, telling us that you can go on trying to figure it out by experimental analysis and different types of observations and experiments. But you won't be able to know it that way because it's mysterious. It's mystical. We can't even, Prabhupada in the purport, he mentions the living entity in the body. We, through our experimental methods, have not even been able to perceive the living force within the body in all of the years of our science, thousands of years. The best brains are trying to figure out what is life, what is consciousness. The Nobel laureates don't know. They can't find it. What is that life? What is that consciousness? They don't know. And if they don't know what the consciousness is in our own bodies, which we can examine, we can take apart, and they do, I think. At the end of life, they dissect them and they cut them up and see if they can find out anything. So, and when they're alive, we can test them, and still we haven't been able to figure out what the life force is of the living entity, what to speak of the life force of the universe, or the whole cosmic manifestation. Where's that? How will we be able to? And Lord Brahma says that even if one studies the Vedas for thousands of years, unless he takes up the process of bhakti, he won't be able to understand transcendental knowledge. The secrets will remain unknown to him. It's not just a matter of education. It's not just a matter of reading. It's a matter of taking up the process so that the transcendental mysteries are revealed. Krishna explains in Bhagavad-Gītā, Ajopi sanaviyatma bhutanam api, what is it? Ishvara apija. Anyway, the purport of the verse is, I'm explaining the science, this mystery of the system of yoga to you because you're my very dear friend, and because bhaktosi me sakacheti rahasyam yetadutama. Rahasyam means this mystery. Ajopi san aviyatma bhutanam ishvaropi sam prakatim svamadishta Sambhavam Yadvamaya. By his arrangement, he's explaining the science to Arjuna because Arjuna has two qualifications. He's a devotee and a friend of the Lord. So we have to also become devotees and friends of the Lord. Then he'll reveal the science. Otherwise, we can't, it's beyond our technology. The tools we have to try to understand things like consciousness and souls and how universes are created and maintained, we don't have the tools for it. It's kind of childish to try to understand these things with our tools. They're not sophisticated. So, the process of becoming the friend and the process of becoming the devotee of the Lord are bhakti yoga. Therefore, bhakti yoga is the king of the king of all yoga systems. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatein antaratmana shadhavam bhajate yomam samayukta tamomata. All the yoga systems lead to bhakti. And if one takes up bhakti, which means love and devotion, yoga with love and devotion, that's much more than exercises or mechanical means to try to control the breathing so that one's mind becomes peaceful. That is a process. It's a process that works if one can execute the practice. But it's difficult. Whereas Bhakti Yoga, one simply has to learn how to engage in devotional service to Krishna. And devotional service is not limited to a small type of, restricted type of service or rituals. One can serve Krishna in many varieties of ways. We were hearing about recently one devotee. He's a professor of English at a university. He's been teaching there for many years. It's not known that he's a devotee. But he's been practicing devotional service for many, many years. And doing his job as a professor of English also very nicely. And everyone's pleased with him. But there was one student of his in English who happened to realize there's something about this professor that's unique. I have never met a professor quite like him, even though he couldn't put his finger on what it was. So somehow or other, after some time and discussing, he noticed that he was wearing some neck beads all around his neck. And then he also had noticed that Prabhupada was wearing neck beads. And so he asked the teacher, "Where are those neck beads?" He said, "This means I have a guru." He said, "Who's your guru?" A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So then it all made sense. Why this professor was having such a profound effect on him is because he was a devotee of Krishna. So devotional service is not limited to one type of activity or one type of lifestyle. Arjuna, for example, was a householder. He had children, family, from a royal family, and he was a general of one of the world's great armies. And when he thought that maybe I should become a renunciate, Krishna said, no, it's not for you. You do this war work. So he did it, and he was successful. He achieved the perfection of life. George Harrison, famous musician, he was thinking, should I try to renounce everything? And Prabhupada said, no, use your position, use your talents in the service of Krishna in music. So everything can be used in Krishna's service. One's strength, one's one's talent, one's wealth. Like we have our devotee in the movement who's a great-grandson of Henry Ford, very wealthy. So his spiritual master engaged him in using his wealth and influence in serving Krishna. And so it's become very favorable for the devotee. So this is the varieties of devotee, because Krishna he's the source of all rasas, all tastes. Here it says here that he becomes the moon and supplies the taste to all vegetables. How is it that vegetables have taste and nutrients? Who arranged that? Or how does it happen like that? We can't explain these things, but instead of, unfortunately, because of our lifestyle, our consciousness is not very pure, we prefer to say, no one's done it, it just happened accidentally. Or science is working on figuring it out, rather than to accept what Krishna is saying, say, yeah, it's coming from me. I'm the original fragrance of the earth. I'm the light in the sun and the moon. I'm the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I'm the sound in ether, the ability in man. Everything's coming from me. It makes sense. Now, we may say, but how could all the aromas come from a person? How do the aromas come from us? We have different aromas. Maybe not all the aromas, but we're not the Supreme Person. The Supreme Person has all the aromas. They all come from Him. He gives the aroma to earth. All the fragrances come from earth. They don't come from Paris. Paris may have some of the fragrances bottled up, but they get them from the earth. And the earth gets them from Krishna. Krishna endows the earth with all the fragrances. And Krishna endows, rasoham apsukonteya, he endows the liquid. I'm the original taste of water, or liquids. They all come from Krishna. That taste, what is that quenchingness that water has? It's unique. The unique quenchingness of water. Krishna says, yes, that's coming from me. That taste, that original pure taste of water is me. What makes the sun shine? For millions of years, floating in this space. Can you make some kind of a ball that floats and gives off heat and light and goes for millions? We can't do it. So why not accept? Who else has come forward and said, yes, I'm the maker of the sun? Nobody has been able to. The copyright is still open, but Krishna says, no, I'm the one. It comes from me. And what does the sun god say? Sun god confirms, it's Krishna. Yes, Krishna is the one. And Brahma, he also confirms, yes. And he's the first person in the universe. He says, I came from Garbhodaksha Vishnu. I was born on a lotus flower that emanated from the navel of Vishnu. So there's complete confirmation. Welcome. Continue.
Were it not for him, all the planets would scatter like dust in air and perish. Similarly, it is due to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that the moon nourishes all vegetables. Due to the moon's influence, the vegetables become delicious. Without the moonshine, the vegetables can neither grow nor taste succulent.
This is another subtlety that perhaps science has not yet discovered. Certainly, Science recognizes the influence of the sun, solar energy, in the growing of plants and trees and vegetables and fruits, but doesn't give sufficient recognition to the moon's influence. Sometimes they do. I remember there was one potato that they were selling. They probably still sell it. It was, I forget the name of it. And they were just butter potatoes, they called. Had the taste of butter. You didn't have to put butter on it. Taste. So it was a little more expensive. And they were giving a brief explanation that it grew in a certain place where the moon, where the nighttime, the coolness and the sun, the moon and the sun just provided a particular group of influences which created this special taste. It could only grow there. So they were giving some credit to the moon. But Krishna is saying more credit should be given. The moon is the reason for these succulent tastes of the vegetables, and the moon gets it from Krishna. Krishna says, I become the moon. Actually, Vasudeva Sarvamite, in one sense, God is everything. What else could it be? It comes from Him. Comes from the source. Janma Jasyataha. He's the source of everything. So in one sense, He's everything. He's the earth, He's the sky, He's the sun, He's the water. And that's certainly fair to say that. But that's not the end of it. It's not that He's just the elements and no. Because He has more, He's not material, He's not limited. For example, if we take a piece of paper and we rip it into 20 pieces, and we scatter the 20 pieces, and the original piece of paper is gone. There's no such original piece of paper. It's all scattered. But Krishna is not like that. Om Purnam Adak Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishate. He's perfect and complete, and even though so many complete units emanate from Him, He remains completely perfect, unreduced. 1 minus 1 equals 1 in transcendental mathematics. And we get a little inkling of that in our own experience. A man has reproductive seeds in his body, and when he distributes them, he doesn't cease to exist as a person, even though he may generate more persons from those seeds. More humans may come out, but he remains as he is, even though so many complete units emanate from him. Or we can also get the idea from our digital system these days. When we make a digital copy, it doesn't diminish the original, whereas formerly on the analog system, the original was diminished. The next generation, each generation lost a little bit of the original fullness. But now with digital, they say it doesn't lose anything, it's the same. So that digital, the original source of all qualities is Sri Krishna. Janma Jasya Hata. That's what the Vedas say. The Vedanta Sutra says, Janma Jasya Hata. He from whom everything emanates is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's Krishna. So when we speak of Krishna, we're not speaking of some particular religion idea of God. We're speaking of the original source, the origin of everything. And one can perceive it and conceive it if he goes through the proper procedures. And that procedure means one has to connect through sampradaya, through the disciplic succession, through the saintly transcendental scientists who've learned this and they're passing it down. So by associating with them, by learning from them, just like one can learn how to become a brain surgeon, for example, he has to learn from other brain surgeons. It's not by experiment. He has to learn from someone who knows the science. So in the same way, we learn this transcendental knowledge from hearing from Sampradaya, the disciplic succession.
Human society is working, living comfortably, and enjoying food due to the supply from the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, mankind could not survive. The word rasatmakaha is very significant. Everything becomes palatable by the agency of the Supreme Lord through the influence of the moon.
If we're honest, we have to admit, we cannot explain these things. Where is the taste coming from? Where are the seeds coming from? How is the universe going on and organized? How is reproduction? We can't explain these things. We don't know what life is. We don't know what consciousness is. We don't know what death is. So why shouldn't we at least be open-minded to hear from Krishna, the original person, and the oldest text, the Vedic text, in the Sanskrit language that is explaining the science? At least we should examine it and see if it makes sense. And the procedure helps. For example, the Bhakti Yoga procedure begins with hearing. As we're doing today, we're hearing about the transcendental science, the glories of Krishna. And chanting, we can speak. We can speak what we hear from the Vedas, from the representatives of the Vedas. We can pass it on, try to assimilate it. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Padasevanam, Vishnu. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam. Smaranam means to remember. So we try to remember and understand it, and we can speak. That's a process of devotional service. This process of bhakti or devotional service can be done anywhere, in any circumstance. Because anywhere we go, we can chant about Krishna, we can hear about Krishna, we can remember Krishna. And when we say Krishna, yes, Krishna includes the impersonal aspect. The impersonal aspect of Krishna is that all-pervasive oneness, or they say in scientific, the atomic theory, everything, if you break it down, it's just atoms, in the oneness of atoms. That's also Krishna. That's an aspect of God, of Krishna. But it's not the complete picture. The complete picture is summarized. Vedanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yaj jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. That the absolute truth can be realized in three features. Brahman, which is the all-pervasive, impersonal aspect of the Supreme Lord. He's so imperceptible in his Brahman feature that nobody's been able to, through that process of trying to realize that feature, one realizes it as being impersonal. There are many people now, especially those coming from the East, who are teaching that the ultimate oneness is impersonal. Not only that, but it's nirvishesha, has no varieties, no qualities. And they say that we also come into that category when we become liberated. So that's a beginning stage of understanding, but it's not the complete understanding. Just like if you see a a mountain from a long distance away. On a clear day, a long distance away, you see a mountain. Looks like kind of like a cloud. But as you come closer, you see that the cloud has definition. Oh no, there's sky and there's a mountain. And then as you come closer, you see, the mountain has lakes and rivers, and trees, houses, animals. And when you get closer, you find there's so many varieties. Whereas from a distance, it seemed that it was variety-less. That's what happens in the beginning stage of transcendental knowledge, is one thinks it's just one big light, one big impersonal, non-variety substance. But as you go closer, you find out. They have a saying amongst the impersonal group. They say, when we become liberated, we merge into the one, to the light, to the Brahman. And they give the analogy of a green bird goes into a green tree, merges. Here you don't have so many green birds, right? You don't have so many green birds. But in India, there are many green birds. Anybody who's been to India, they know. And there's the green birds, they go into the tree. And you can't distinguish where the bird is. And if you didn't know, you'd say, well, it merged, became part of the tree. But that's childish. A child might say, yes, the bird merged. But the adult will say, no, it's not merged, he's in there. It's just your eyes are not calibrated enough so that you can distinguish between the bird and the tree. But if you go close, you'll see. And after a little while, the bird flies out. And then you see, aha, he's not merged. So the idea that after liberation, the living entity merges with the supreme impersonal Brahman energy is not fully correct. It's only a partial truth. Temporary merging, but not real, not the original nature of the living entity. Living entity never merges. The living entity never is cleavable, cannot be cut into pieces. It cannot be moistened by water, withered by the wind, burned by fire, cut by a sharp instrument. It's completely indestructible. And they don't merge and become one with some other soul. Individually, we're all eternally souls. And we've been existing forever. It's not that at a certain day we become created. That's not the Vedic information. Vedic information is ajo, nityam, shashvatoyam parana. Aja means no birth. The living entity has no beginning, has no end. He doesn't take birth and he never dies. He's eternal, ever existing, primeval. He's not slain when the body is slain. This body is going to be slain. It'll be unusable at a certain date. Whether by natural causes or unnatural causes, it's not going to work anymore. And what will happen to the life force at that time? According to the Vedas, the life force that's in the body will leave the body when the body is no longer habitable. And it will go invisibly to its next destination according to its karma. Karma means according to the qualifications of his activities. If he leads a life in the mode of goodness, his next body, his next situation will be one of goodness. If he leads his life, his present life, in the mode of passion, his next lifetime will be in a mode of passion again. He'll continue from where he left off. And if one leaves his life in transcendence in this life, then he goes beyond the material realm to the spiritual realm and takes his next situation in the spiritual form. More?
text 14.
So, we've discussed that. Before we go on, are there any questions or discussion on this point? Yes?
Is there any proposal, theoretical of course, for devotees or any human beings to go to a higher planet and be able to preach there to the inhabitants of the other planet?
There's already devotees there. Fortunately, there's many. Upper planets have many, many devotees. In fact, the upper planets are made almost exclusively of devotees. Like Indra. Indra is a great devotee. Chandra is a great devotee, the charge of the moon. Krishna appoints his great devotees to manage these different planets in different parts of the universe. They aren't being managed accidentally or automatically. It's not an automatic pilot. There are pilots. There are people, there are deities in charge, taking care of the moon. And they're also great devotees. So the demigods, there are 33 crores of demigods. A crore is 10 million. So 33 times 10 million is 330 million demigods for managing the universe. These are primary management. Now we may say, I've never met one. That doesn't mean, because our travel experience is limited, doesn't mean that there aren't such demigods managing the moon, making sure everything. Have you ever met someone who manages an electrical power station?
No.
Does that mean they don't exist? If someone says, I never met a man who managed an electrical power system, power plant, I assume they don't exist. Oh, that's a wrong it's a wrong assumption. They do exist. You haven't met them yet. So there's all these demigods on other planets that we haven't met yet. No, that was one question. Let's see if someone else has another question.
Can I ask one quick question? Where is Goloka Vrindavan located? On these higher planets, or is it a location by itself?
Goloka Vrindavan, the name of Goloka Vrindavan is Krishna's personal planet. It's the highest planet. It's the supreme spiritual planet. Krishna lives there with his eternal associates. And that's the home of the pure devotees. So all the living entities get to live where they want to live. It's like there are some living entities, they really want to live in the earth. You've seen the little bugs, they go out and they burrow down in the earth. They feel, now I'm home. They feel safe in the earth. And there are other living entities, they want to live in the water. If you take them out of the water, they become hysterical. And there are some living entities who want to live in space and different planets. And there are some living entities who want to live in Krishna's personal planet with Krishna. And that is Goloka. And that's beyond the material world, beyond the spiritual sky. It's the highest.
I know a person who has some conception of God as that oneness or as nature, and I guess the basic of my question is, what's the next step? What's the next step that I can give him without necessarily mentioning God as a person, because that was not exactly successful, so that he can eventually come to a personal realization?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a story of, there were 4 philosophers, and they were impersonalists. And they were fixed. They were vastly learned. They could explain everything empirically, this, that. But then they had an experience. They went and visited Lord Vishnu once, and they smelled the incense. Somebody's feeding back here, maybe. And they smelled the incense and the tulsi that had been offered to the lotus feet of Krishna. And that mystical experience made them into personalists. What about chanting? Will the person accept chanting? It's music. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. What would be the objection to chanting? Too personal? Therefore, the impersonals generally prefer to chant Om. So let them chant Om. Krishna says, Pranava sarva vedeshu shabda ke parusham nashu. I'm the syllable Om. But don't tell them that. Let them chant Om, feeling that they're chanting something impersonal, but that's the point. Krishna says, I'm the basis. Brahmanohi pratishtaham amritasya vyasya. I'm the basis of the impersonal Brahman.
His mic's loud.
I'm the basis. So eventually there's going to have to be some interface between impersonal and personal. Where does the impersonal Brahman come from? They may say the impersonal Brahman is the original, the origin of everything. But Krishna says, no, I'm the source of everything, and the Brahman, the impersonal energy, is coming from me. So if he prefers to chant Om, that's all right. But if he'll chant maybe once in a while a little Hare Krishna also. And what about prasadam? Everyone's got to eat, even the impersonalists. Isn't it? If you ask the impersonalists, do you not eat either because you're an impersonalist? You say, no, I eat. All right, so take Krishna prasadam. It's called Agyata Sukriti. Just like we were telling about this student who was studying from this English professor for years. There was something about the English professor, although he never mentioned Krishna, but something was penetrating the student, and he finally realized that it was Krishna after many years. But it takes a long time that way. Bhavanam Janmanamante Gyanavam Mam Prabhati. If he takes prasadam and chants Hare Krishna, it can go a lot quicker. And it's a good idea to do it quicker because we don't know how long we have to live. And it may take thousands and millions of lifetimes to figure it out by speculation. That's called the process of neti. Not this, not this. When you try to find out what something is, it's like if I say, I have something, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'll tell you what it isn't. It's not a pickle. Okay, what's your guess then? No, that's wrong. It's not a dog. How long can this go on? We can go on millions of lifetimes. I'm telling you what it isn't, and you're trying to guess what it is. But if I tell you, it's right here. Save time. Other questions? Or discussion? Here.
Are the impersonalists concerned with ego, taming the ego? Or it seems like it could go the opposite way if they're not careful.
Well, they want to merge the ego so that they don't exist as an individual anymore, that they become one with God. And then that's called the last snare of Maya, illusion, because at a certain point they think, I'm God now. Now I've merged, I'm one with God, I'm everything. And sometimes they kind of imagine that they're moving the stars and the moon and the sun. It's kind of like LSD or something. One hallucinates. It's a form of hallucination to imagine that one is God when one is not. We're part of God. That's our actual identity. We're qualitatively one with God, but in a very small degree. So that much Godness we can claim. No one should say I'm completely separate from God. No one can say I have nothing to do with God. No, I'm a part of God. He's the Father. I'm the Son. I'm the part. But I'm not God himself. It's like saying a drop of water can say, I'm part of the ocean. That's fair. That's a correct statement. But if he says, I am the ocean, you're not the ocean. You're not the whole ocean. You're part. But the impersonalists get confused with analogies like when the drop goes into the ocean, it merges. But does it really merge? No. And expert scientists say it doesn't merge. The atoms are still distinct. But it's difficult to see with the naked eye. So they want to give up the ego, give up everything, and become one with God. But that's not possible. But there's something that Krishna allows them to feel like they're merged for some time. And that's the Brahmajyoti. They can go there, spend time in the Brahmajyoti, in a kind of oneness with the Lord, and no varieties of activities. That's why they practice monam, silence, not speaking, not interacting, impersonal. But that won't last. Why? Because we're not impersonal. We're actually persons. When we try to do something that's unnatural for us, we can only do it for some time. We can't do it permanently. At some point, we will yearn for personal relationships and interactions and varieties. And when we do that, if we don't have connection through yoga with the transcendental variegatedness of the spiritual realm, we will seek it in the material realm, which is a dim reflection, and we won't be satisfied with that because it's material.
Is there said to be a time before the moon was in the sky? Was there a time when the sun was there but not the moon? Or is there anything said like that?
Yes, there are partial. First of all, the manifestation of the material universes is cyclical. Sometimes they're manifest. For example, the source is Mahavishnu. I'm going to summarize. It's a big subject. You're studying Srimad Bhagavatam now? So you'll find all this in the Srimad Bhagavatam in vast detail. But I'll just summarize. Mahavishnu is one of the forms of Krishna, an expansion of Krishna. Gigantic form of Vishnu with 4 hands. And he lies down in a mystic slumber called Yoga Nidra. And as he exhales, universes come out from all the pores of his body. And our universe is one of the millions and trillions of universes that emanates from his breathing. And while he's exhaling, that's the manifested period for all those material universes. And that particular exhalation lasts 311 trillion years, according to our calculation. It's a long exhalation. And our material manifestations are extant that long. Then when he inhales, they no longer are manifest. They're back within him. Then again, another breath, again. So it's cyclical. And within that 311 trillion years of manifestation, there's also cycles. For example, Brahma, the first created being, he's the engineer of the universe. He lives the full duration of a universe. He's in charge. In fact, it's called Brahma Anda, Brahma's egg. He's the supreme person inside the universe, designing all. He's the sub-designer. He lives the full length of that universe, or Brahmanda. And that full Brahmanda exists, his lifetime is 311 trillion years. So if you break that down, his 100 years, he lives 100 years of his calculation. But it comes out to 311 trillion years according to the bigger cosmic calculation. When he goes to sleep at night, Brahma, there's a semi-devastation of the material universe as we know it. As he goes to sleep, everything shuts down. Just like in our body, when it goes to sleep, not everything shuts down. The circulation goes on, the breathing goes on, but thinking goes on, but certain things don't work. Shut down. The arms and the legs, they don't function. So when Brahma goes to sleep, then certain aspects of the universe shut down. When he wakes up again, then they are manifest. And then there's further manifestations. Under each day of Brahma, there are 71 Manus. Manu means Manvantar. Manu's in charge of mankind. He's a manager of the humankind throughout the universe. So he has his sphere. And during his sphere, there's also some type of partial devastations that devastate certain planets, and certain planets are shut down for some time. Sometimes there's floods, just like we have floods here. We have hurricanes. On the universal scale, there's also these things going on. It's all described. That's just a little summary. You can study Srimad Bhagavatam. It's in depth. You won't be disappointed. That's the point. Scientists won't be disappointed if they take the opportunity to delve into this treasure house of transcendental knowledge known as Vedic literature. And they'll get answers. Therefore, you find many scientists, such as Einstein and others, they studied the Vedas. But studying the Vedas by oneself is not as effective as studying the Vedas under an authorized teacher. So therefore, just like if you pick up a book on quantum mechanics and you're not familiar with the subject, you may not get very much out of it. But if you go through the procedure of studies under the proper expert teachers, then gradually you'll come to the stage where you understand quantum mechanics quite well. Does that make sense? Any questions? How much time do we have?
Yeah, it's time.
It's time now? So we're okay? So thank you very much for your kind attention. It was a pleasure to have your company. Now we're going to have Arti ceremony for about a half hour, chanting and singing, and then we'll serve the transcendental feast, vegetarian prasadam that has been offered to Krishna for everyone's satisfaction. Hare Krishna. Bhagavad-Gītā ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
His Holiness Danavir Goswami Maharaj ki jai.